Hey guys, we're going to be in John chapter 5. John chapter 5, this odd thing about people being upset about when Jesus did good stuff. I mean, it was really odd. It says, for this reason, the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him because he had done these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, said, my Father has been working until now, and I have been working. Therefore, the Jews sought all the more to kill him because he not only broke the Sabbath, but also said that God was his Father. Now, there's a lot there, and I'm not going to talk about the fact that Jesus talked about God, God being his Father and all of that. I want to talk about the Sabbath issue. Jesus makes it clear in his teaching that the Sabbath was made for man and not for God, in the sense that it was made to give them rest. But there were all these laws that man had placed on the Sabbath. I mean, they had gotten down to the point where they were just, were you working? If you were to spit on the ground and that spit were to roll up dirt, were you tilling dirt? Were you actually working? I mean, all of the different things where, so strict on this Sabbath that it really became a hindrance to people rather than rest. It became something that was more stressful than it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a day of rest, of worship, and all of that. But instead, it ended up being very, very stressful, making sure that they didn't do this, that, or the other. Here was Jesus, though. He was healing on the Sabbath. He was doing miracles on the Sabbath. And here was the thing: is that what does it matter which day of the week it is when you're doing the will of the Father? I mean, that's the key. I mean, Jesus was doing amazing things. He was teaching. He was helping. He was healing. He was loving. He was serving. He was doing all of those things. And yet they were so angry with him because he was breaking this tradition that they had created. Yes, the Sabbath being important, the Sabbath being something, a day set aside. That's wonderful, but it was never meant to be something that was stressful and that was more filled with heartache than it was with joy. It should have been a day filled with rest and joy, relaxation, and the ability to worship and to worship the Lord with all of your heart on that day and just spend time with Him and in His Word and all of those things. But yet they hated him for it. They were so caught up in the little details of things rather than worried about the what God is doing. A lot of us can get that way. We can get to where we're more caught up in the details of things. And man, we shouldn't do this and this and this. And we have rules against this and this. And I'm not talking about sin and a moral thing. I'm talking about really just the rules within buildings and the rules within this and the rules within that, and that we forget that we are here to worship, to have gratitude, to love the Lord. And we get so caught up in the, hey, listen, if a child runs in the church, sure, they should be told, hey, we're not going to be doing all that running and craziness right here in this section of the church. That's what the gym's for and all that. But that stuff's crazy. If they're in church, aren't you excited they're there? We live in a culture, man. I grew up in a culture where you didn't wear hats in buildings, man. It was so disrespectful to do that. And I mean, that's just a generation ago. It was so disrespectful to do that. And for some cases, it is now. You certainly don't do that in some places without being reprimanded. But man, if somebody's coming to church for the first time and somebody's going to come in there with a hat on, what in the world is like, man, you got to get your hat on. Man, be glad they're there. Let's get them. Let's get Jesus in them before we worry about man's stuff and man's rules and man's laws as such. What we need to worry about is whether or not they love Jesus and whether or not they're born again and all of those things. Teach them about the secular world and how to be respectful as such, and that so that they can understand this religious world, if you will. But here's the thing, guys. They've hated Jesus because he healed and because he did all that he did on the Sabbath. He was like, look, the Sabbath was made for you. And that's why it's so strict, and that's why it's important. It's because you're supposed to get that rest, and you're supposed to worship on that day. Guys, we get so caught up in the little minutia type things in this world that we don't think about the bigger things, the bigger spiritual issues. And we need to think on the bigger spiritual issues rather than getting caught up in all of the little things. Don't you think? Don't you think we need to love people? Don't you think we need to set aside some of the craziness and believe that God can work through a person and in a person? Just throw away all of the details. Work on those later. For right now, let's just trust that God is going to do something big in someone and in some place, in some church. See you guys. Bye-bye.